Hey everyone, and welcome to the afternoon. Why is my camera over there? Afternoon version of Just in the Nick of Crime, where we have been covering the Diddy trial in and out. And so we have the afternoon updates. Now, I do want to make it very clear that these afternoon updates aren't going to encompass anything that happened in the first half of the day, the movie, or sorry, the midday stuff. There is a separate YouTube video for that. There's a separate Substack article for that, as well as the notes for this one are already on Substack. I've already published those. So if you want to follow me there, you can. For those of y'all who don't know what a Substack is, it is an article-based platform. It is free. I will never have subscriber-only content on Substack. People who want to do a paid subscription do so just to support my work, but it is never required, but always appreciated. So the notes are already there. So if you are not able to, Jesse asked, am I going to do a night update? That's what this is. So this is the afternoon update, and we're going to talk about it right now. A lot happened today. Quite a bit happened today. So without going into the earlier half, let's just jump right into it. Follow on Substack. Follow on YouTube. If you come in late or can't stay, these things will always be there saved. For my Instagram people, please follow. I am so close on Insta to that 400,000 follower mark. And we are so close. So please follow. TikTok. Please tap that screen. We're almost at 10,000. Let's see if we can get to 20 and share this live out. Get it out to people that you know. Follow if you're new here because we're covering the Diddy trial. And same thing for YouTube. If you are jumping over to YouTube, please subscribe. Hit that bell notification. I'm going on a journey to 50,000 on YouTube, and we are at 44 and change. So we are getting so close. Now, all of that said, first announcement that I want to make. This came in. I didn't even get to work this into my notes because it came in literally as I was going live. But there was debate about whether or not these freak-off videos that are at the center of this trial would be released to the public, okay? And that was in a video I talked about yesterday. Would they be released? Would you even want to see them? Personally, I don't want to see them. Well, the judge made a ruling, and basically here's what he said. The freak-off videos will not be released to the public, nor will their full contents ever be known despite being shown to the jury, which personally, I think that's kind of how it should be. Right. So anyways, I'm for that. Look, a lot of the situations, people were under the influence of something. What we've heard from the civil suits is that and from Cassie, that he would force people to do substances, to drink, they'd be laced with things, etc. So a lot of people probably don't even know that they were recorded. And Cassie's already up here being incredibly vulnerable at 8 months pregnant, sharing all of this horrific, humiliating detail that's not her fault, but still to talk about this is got to be difficult. And so having those tapes out there, I don't think is a good idea. There's no reason for any of us that the public needs to see those, in my opinion. So let's talk a little bit about what happened. Like I said, this is for the second half of the day after lunch. There was a separate video, separate Substack article for the earlier part of the day. If you want to get caught up, if you missed the whole day, you were at work, that is the midday recap that is on my YouTube. And yeah. So Cassie Ventura displayed a more composed demeanor this go around than she did yesterday. She was calm and somber. She continued to recount the abuse. Yesterday, she had broke down several times. She kept her emotions more restrained today, speaking in a steady tone without the intense outward display of distress that she had yesterday. I guess she kind of got more. She's been speaking, if I had to guess, probably 8 hours now, maybe more. Maybe actually more like 9 or 10 because it was 4.5 yesterday plus whatever today. So she's been thinking a lot about this, and so maybe she's gotten to a point where she's compartmentalizing in her mind like a business. This is just what I have to do. Throughout her testimony, she made a point of avoiding eye contact with Sean Combs. She focused instead on the prosecutor who was questioning her. This deliberate choice of where to direct her attention kind of shows the emotional distance she maintained from the man she is accusing of abuse. Now, why she stayed focused on her testimony, her husband, Alex Fine, was seen occasionally looking at Diddy. In contrast, Diddy kept his hands on his lap, a posture that remained largely still throughout the proceedings. At times, he passed notes to his team of lawyers, visibly shaking his head as images of Cassie's injuries were shown in the courtroom. And we're going to get into that. Today got pretty brutal and pretty graphic in talking about the abuse and things that went on. This fact that this woman endured this for 10 years. And I do want to kind of talk about real quick before I go to this next part. I do kind of want to talk about this because I've seen in my comments, well, I don't understand why she couldn't leave. Why didn't she just leave? She could have left. She could have done this. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about how she didn't have the means to leave in a little bit. But at the same time, people who say that, I don't think have ever been in an abusive relationship because when you are in a relationship like that, they break you down mentally, physically, where you think that you have no other options. They isolate you where you think you have no other options. And if look, there's 300, almost 400 people in Insta. There's almost 1,000 on TikTok, and how many on YouTube here? About 100 on YouTube right now. I guarantee you that a large portion of you guys, or a decent portion of you guys, have been in domestic violence relationships. So now think about that. If you were in a situation like that, the things that the abuser did to keep you there, and then imagine somebody with unchecked power, unlimited money, and the connections to make you disappear. And that's kind of what you have. So just to be like, well, they should have just left. It is the same thing we talked about the Menendez brothers. They were adults. They should just leave. Clearly, you've never been in an abusive relationship. They get you to a point where you crave their approval that you're never going to get. And until you get to a point that you can break free of that, you know? So I just wanted to address that real quick. Now, before we get back into her testimony, there's a few things that happened before the jury walked back in. There were some talks about witnesses having emotional issues, and we got a couple other witness names from this. So let me just kind of go through my notes here on this. So as the jury took a break for lunch, the judge addressed the attorneys while still in the courtroom, emphasizing that while he would not be instructing the witnesses, the judge would not be instructing the witnesses, he would not allow any witness coaching or passing of messages from prosecutors to the victim witnesses while they were testifying. The judge's instructions came after a defense request for victim witnesses to be barred from communicating with their attorneys or prosecutors about their testimony or trial. One attorney representing the victim witness, known as Mia, this is a name that we hadn't heard yet, spoke to the judge about the challenges his clients faced while preparing to testify. He argued that he needed to be able to speak with her during breaks and offer emotional support, saying, quote, "We are not going to put words in her mouth." He stated adding that it was crucial to be able to support her as she proceeded with what she was experiencing on the stand. Lawyer noted that Mia's anxiety was overwhelming, saying candidly, her nerves are through the roof. She would have taken these things to her grave. These are the worst things that have ever happened to her. The concerns from the defense were echoed by attorneys for other victim witnesses. Another lawyer representing Jane shared that his client had been experiencing very serious breakdown moments in the lead up to the trial. The emotional toll of preparing for her testimony was evident, and the lawyer stressed that Jane would need support during her time on the stand. In response, the judge made it clear that while the attorneys could continue communicating with their clients during breaks, they were prohibited from advising them about what they should or shouldn't say or attempting to influence their testimony. The judge's decision was also aimed at preserving the integrity of the witnesses' statements while also acknowledging the emotional strain many of these victims were enduring. Michael Ferreira, who is another attorney who's representing a victim, Mia, expressed his concern about the best way to support his clients as she reveals the most traumatic moments of her life. And he said, "I don't know how to support her if we can't discuss the pain she's going to experience from having to tell the world about her worst experiences." And that's a pretty fair statement. And all the attorneys emphasized the emotional strain on their clients that they were under, and they prepared to recount these deeply painful events. The judge's ruling ensured that while legal team could offer emotional support, they could not provide guidance on the specifics of the testimony. So basically, this is all, and then we're going to get to Cassie's. So basically, there are people that are coming up, and you got to think of how taxing this is for them. You have Cassie out there sharing some of the most intimate, most humiliating details of her life that she experienced at the hands of Sean Diddy Combs. And now you have other victims that we know that they're accusers that are getting ready to do the same thing. Go on a stand, share the most intimate details of their life, things that they feel humiliation and shame and fear for. And they're going to go up on a stand, publicly on a stand, and share with the world their truth. And that's not going to be easy, right? Not going to be easy. Real quick, I do want to address something. It looks like we have a new member on YouTube. Just want to say thank you, Carrie Lynn, for the support. I so appreciate it. You guys never have to do that, but it's always appreciated. Thank you. Now, that being said, let's get into what happened after lunch with Cassie's testimony. So, actually, before I do, this is actually really important to share with you guys. The defense team did not expect Cassie to go the way that it has, her testimony. And because of that, they're having to readjust their strategy, okay? His attorney, Tony Garagos, acknowledged that the defense will now need to adjust its strategy following the testimony of Cassie Ventura as the prosecution's star witness. Garagos noted that Ventura Ventura's direct examination went differently than expected, prompting the need for a shift in their approach. Now, I think that this is very interesting because this means it didn't go the way that they had. This very expensive elite legal team didn't expect what Cassie did. She threw them off, and I think that that's pretty incredible, right? So her testimony has been described by a legal analyst as flawless and meticulous. She did not hold back, recounting the intense details of the abuse and coercion she allegedly endured during her years-long relationship with Combs. After over 8 hours of testimony, Ventura painted a vivid picture of a relationship defined by control, threats of violence, and physical toll. When you look at the centrality of Ventura's testimony, stating that is the cornerstone of this prosecution, the core of this case rests on the prosecution's claim that Ventura was under Combs' control and coercion, with physical violence serving as a constant threat, which I do believe she has done a good job articulating. As a result, the defense now faces a dilemma. The defense has to really think to themselves, are we going to attack her on whether or not she consented to all of these free costs when she is now today describing the physical toll that took place as a result? Ventura's testimony also shed light on the lasting effects of these encounters, describing the physical and emotional aftermath, including the time it took her to recover. At times, Ventura appeared unemotional while recounting the traumatic experiences, which to me makes sense because when you're trying to relive or having to talk about these horrific experiences, you kind of go to a place in your mind where you just talk about it as matter of fact, almost like a business, right? Despite the heavy nature of her testimony, though, she had a confident demeanor, analysts adding that she comes across as a very secure witness and a very confident young woman. As the trial unfolds, it is clear that Ventura's testimony has shifted the dynamics of the case, leaving the defense with tough questions about how to proceed with their cross-examination. So I think that that's pretty incredible, if you ask me. Now, during her testimony, she recounted a moment where she confronted Sean about the abuse that she called him Sean suffered. That the abuse that she suffered during their relationship. She testified that she once told him, "You treat me like Ike," referencing Ike Turner, which you may or may not know this depending on your age, but Ike Turner is a notorious abusive partner to Tina Turner, like notorious, like text bark of like that's an abusive guy. This comment, as described in Tina Turner's autobiography and the subsequent film adaptation, highlighted the abusive nature of the relationship, which is what she was trying to do, drawing a stark comparison to that infamous domestic abuse that Turner had to endure. Ventura also provided further details about the early days of her relationship with Combs, explaining that his employees, including security personnel and a driver, witnessed him physically abusing her. Over time, Ventura said assistants who saw the abuse, including one named Mia, quit their jobs after witnessing the violence. Okay? So now, let's get into what the jury saw today. So during today's proceedings, the jury was shown several still images taken from videos that were recovered from electronic devices that Cassie provided to investigators. These images, which depict Cassie in various stages of encounters, were shown only to the jury and the witness stand to maintain the sensitive nature of the evidence. As the first image appeared on screen, showing Cassie and a male worker she identified as Jules, one juror's eyes were described as widening. Another juror shook his head in apparent disbelief. A third male juror pressed his hand and pen to his face, studying the images intently, while a female juror pursed her lips. Many jurors took notes as Ventura described the images, detailing her involvement in the encounters. The images were presented with a degree of caution, obviously. What the court did in order to keep this as private as they could is they installed personal video screens for each juror to ensure that the explicit content was not visible to the public, press, or anyone outside that jury box. The feed was cut to the public gallery and overflow rooms as the images remain under seal, which, again, I agree with that. I think that they should be. The prosecutor, Emily Johnson, showed Cassie a still image taken from the video of one of the free calls, which involved one of the escorts Cassie and Combs frequently used. The images were not shared with the lawyers at the table to prevent any unintended public viewing. In one instance, Combs leaned over his lawyer, Mark Agnafilo, to view the images in a binder. After a few moments, he handed the binder back to his attorney. The court's efforts to shield the public from the explicit material were further reinforced by the use of binders containing printed copies of the images, which were given to the judge and defense counsel. The jury, however, saw the images directly on their screens, and as Cassie identified herself and others in the images, the court was basically silent. Another female juror nodded in acknowledgement, while another took written notes. Reactions from jurors were noticeable. Another female juror let out a deep breath and rested her hand on her chest as an image was placed on her screen. A male juror quickly looked away from one of the images while another wrote intently on his notepad. Talking about this, and legal analysts coming back in on this, commenting on the significance of these images, saying, quote, "If I were at the defense table, I would be very concerned because a picture speaks 1,000 words." And not only that, Cassie was describing it in direct examination. So now you can see it in a picture. And that these images are apparently graphic enough to show and really hit home that Cassie was not in a relationship as a consenting adult. That was the goal of it. Now, let's get into something that everybody's been talking about, which is the Kid Cudi incident, right? Those of y'all who don't know, the rumor, or the alleged, I'll call it a rumor, the alleged accusation is that Diddy got mad that Cassie was dating Kid Cudi and that Diddy blew up his car. So now let's get into the nuts and bolts of that. So Cassie testified about a volatile moment in 2011 where Sean discovered that she had been dating Kid Cudi, whose real name, by the way, is Scott Mescudi. I think it's Mescudi, though. Ventura described how Combs found out about the relationship during one of their free coffee events in LA and this was after going through her phone and reading emails between her and Combs. Between her and Combs' staff, he became enraged. She said, quote, "I remember him pulling a wine bottle opener between his fingers, and lunging at me." So lunging at her with a wine opener, a corkscrew between his fingers. She said that it was a violent outburst and described him as having blackened eyes, visibly furious. And in the heat of the moment, she managed to escape and fled to another hotel using a burner phone. She called Kid Cudi to come pick her up. Her testimony continued with a chilling account of threats he made after that incident. She recalled him telling that he would release videos of the freak-off and that he would harm her and Kid Cudi. She mentioned sending an email to her mother and one of Combs' employees detailing these threats. The situation escalated further when Combs allegedly told Ventura that Mescudi's car would be blown up, hoping that Kid Cudi and his friends would witness the destruction. Ventura testified that she later ended her relationship with him in early 2012, citing the constant danger and uncertainty surrounding her interaction, saying, quote, "Too much danger, too much uncertainty of what could happen if we continued to see each other." The alleged car explosion occurred soon after Cassie ended the relationship. In Cassie's 2023 lawsuit against Diddy, it referenced this, claiming that his car exploded in his driveway. And Kid Cudi's spokesperson has confirmed that this is all true. The indictment leading to Combs' arrest includes allegations that he used arson to control his victims, and with the explosions of the car being one of those key incidents that they have cited. Now, in the wake of the breakup, Ventura, Combs, and Mescudi had a tense meeting at the Soho house. Ventura recalled Kid Cudi asking, "What about my vehicle?" To this, Combs coldly replied, "What vehicle?" signaling his disregard for the incident had even taken place. Ultimately, the dangers and threats from Combs forced Ventura to break ties, break up with him, ending that relationship and that chapter of her life. She said, quote, "Sean said he was going to hurt the both of us." Let's pause there for a moment. Let's talk about this for a moment. Somebody commented and said, I'm going to comment real quick on YouTube. We're going to throw up a comment real quick. Somebody says Cassie was a willing participant. So it's always people who don't have photos, who don't have real names, and they want to troll. And here's what I'm going to say. Obviously, you're either a troll or you're an abuser. That's the only way that you could feel this way. And I'm just going to say this real quick. Trolling's fun. I get it. I have a troll account on TikTok that when Justin the Nick of Crime can't say something, my troll account can. It's completely anonymous. Nobody knows who it is. The thing about it, though, is there are certain things that are great to troll on. Somebody being a victim for years and years and years of abuse, violent outbursts, physical abuse, threats, isolation, that's not really something to troll. I would either say that if you do truly feel the way that you feel that she was a willing participant, then maybe look somewhere deep in your soul and figure out what went wrong, either in your childhood or your life. And if this is a troll, maybe find something better to do with your time. because there are real people and real victims at the end of this. And that's just what I want to say. Moving on. And if you're going to troll, at least, whatever, show your face. We're going to go ahead and put that user in timeout because obviously they don't understand abuse and I'm not here to educate them. Go back to the beginning of this video if you want to learn about abuse. All right. So let me go back to this real quick. I lost my spot here. That hits me. Okay. So Cassie then describes threats from Combs to release the tapes and harm her and Kid Cudi. So this is a little bit different of a section here. The jury was shown an email that was sent by Cassie to her mother and one of Sean's employees. We referenced that a few minutes ago. This was back in December of 11, in which she detailed threats made by Combs, and she wrote that Combs had threatened to, quote, release the explicit S tapes of her, including one on Christmas Day. In the same email, she said that Combs threatened to hurt both her and Scott Miscuddy, also known again as Kid Cudi, who Ventura was dating at the time. However, Ventura clarified that Combs did not intend to carry out the harm himself, stating that he would be out of the country when it happened. All right. I want to stop here real quick and talk about this. Okay. She clarified that he did not intend to carry out the harm himself, stating that he would be out of the country when it happened. Now, I say this and I pause here because even though he's not charged with this, it's not what he's on trial for. He was not in the area when Biggie died. He was not in the area when Tupac died, yet he has connections to all of those. I think that if you could really get into it, there's a lot of bodies connected to this man. There's the famous ones, and I'm sure that there's not the famous ones as well. Just saying. Cassie then gets into describing the physical fights and abuse with Combs. You guys now should know that this is a trigger warning type thing. Hopefully y'all know this, but in case, trigger warning. So she testified about multiple instances of physical violence during her relationship with him, including occasions when she herself initiated physical confrontations. Despite these fights, she noted that Combs never showed signs of injury afterwards. So she would basically initiate physical confrontation with him, and he never showed any signs of injuries afterwards. Okay. Just keep that in the back of your mind. But while this was happening and he showed no signs, she would endure significant physical tolls, often taking days to recover. Saying, quote, anytime he was physical, there would be at least some trace, a bruise or something, trying to emphasize basically the seriousness of the abuse that she faced and the severity of it, how horrific it was. In one of the most harrowing recollections, she described an incident following a party from a Los Angeles club where he had been calling her names, which led to a drunken response from Cassie, where she punched him in the face. Good for her, by the way. This prompted him to retaliate, violently stomping on her face while she laid on the floor of an Escalade. A Cadillac Escalade. Once they arrived at Combs' house, Ventura said she attempted to escape by jumping out of the car and running down the street. However, Combs' security team quickly caught up with her and forcibly brought her back to the house. That to me sounds like somebody who cannot leave. You cannot leave on your own. Anyways, after being brought back inside, Ventura looked at her reflection. She said she did not recognize herself, just knots and bleeding, swollen, everything. I looked horrible. Saying, sorry, this incident is just one, choking on myself there. This incident is just one of the many violent outbursts that she testified to, illustrating the extreme and ongoing abuse that she endured. She also spoke about the first time he became violent with her early in their relationship. He recounted being at dinner when she saw him flirting with another person. This caused her to react with a shrug of disbelief. When they got into the car afterward, she apparently said that he suddenly struck her, hitting her in the side of the head. She fell to the car floor, saying that his security and driver were present at the time, and Ventura described being shocked by the violence. This is the first time he did it. So she said, quote, I didn't necessarily understand what happened and why he was so angry, except for the little bit he said as he was hitting me in the car. After the assault, she went home and hid out, trying to process the violence that she had just experienced. All right. We have another person trying to get attention in the Instagram chat saying He does deserve prison for Cassie, but he should get like 5 years. That he has children, she should choose to participate in all this. I think we just kind of talked about how she didn't really have a choice to participate in this, that he would physically go grab her and pull her back and beat the crap out of her. You know, just saying. Just saying. When somebody goes and physically goes to your house and gets you and beats the crap out of you, you don't really have a chance to leave. I don't like the issue is I don't think you can time out people on Insta. I can pin her for public shame, but that's about it. Yeah, you can't do timeout, unfortunately, on Insta. I would recommend ignoring her. Um, then she testified about yet another incident of physical violence. Also, we cannot have opinions now. That's wild. I want to address this real quick. This is not particularly my space. So here's how this works. Nami, you can absolutely have opinions. This is my platform, though, so it's not like this free for all. It's kind of a dictatorship where I get to choose what's here or not. And you sitting here victim shaming and victim blaming is not something that we tolerate. If I had a mod in here, you would have already been kicked out. I would encourage you to leave. That's you're not welcome here, is my point. You can have an opinion somewhere else. We don't victim shame or victim blame on this platform. That's just the bottom line. We don't do that. We don't allow that. Dan's like, mod me. I have to do it separately, Dan. I don't think I can just do that. Yeah, you can have educated opinions. But we'll have to deal with that later. So the way I go through, just real quick on a side thing, you're right. It's not worth the trolls, but I want to make sure that we address it because sometimes the trolls make comments that are opportunities for us to educate for people who might not know or for people who might be in a situation blaming themselves for being in a situation that it is not their fault. Cassie was in a situation that was not her fault. And I'm sure with there's 3,000 people almost on here, another 400 or 350 on there, and then another 230 here. There's probably somebody who needs to hear this. That if you're in a relationship, do not blame yourself when somebody is forcing you to stay physically violent with you. It often takes people 7 times before they leave, and sometimes it becomes too late. And here's the thing about this. Had something happened to her under the guise of Diddy, it would become something else. And I truly believe that. He would have either been not involved in it, he'd have been out of town, he had to have some kind of alibi, or he paid people off for them to have taken care of it. That's my opinion of the matter. Anyways, I digress. So that's why sometimes it's good to talk and engage with the trolls, because sometimes there's educational moments that come after it. So anyways, going back to this, she talked about another incident of physical violence at Prince's house. So she testifies about this. She attended a party at Prince's house. This happened afterwards. She explained that she hadn't told Combs about the party, fearing that he would not allow her to go. But it's Prince, right? You got to go to that party. Once at the party, she caught a glimpse of Combs, who was there, and he appeared angry and immediately ran out as fast. She said she immediately ran out as fast as she could to avoid the confrontation. Later at the hotel, where Ventura was staying, Combs came into the room, bursting into it, and they went into the bedroom to prevent her friend, who was sleeping on the couch, from hearing the altercation. Apparently, she said that he beat her up in that room. He was throwing luggage at me, calling me all kinds of names. Afterwards, she had visible bruises on her face and knots on her head. In addition to recounting this incident, she shared with the jury photos of herself with a black eye, which was mostly concealed by sunglasses. The photos, which were taken in Jamaica in 2013 or 14, were shown to the jury as evidence of this abuse. Although Ventura couldn't recall exactly how she received the injury, she remembered hiding from Combs underneath a tractor with a friend for several hours to escape further harm. Then she goes on to testify about another violent outburst from him early in their relationship. This is going a little bit more this is the same relationship going a little bit more into detail. Let me see if there's any new information. Okay, yeah. So going back to the incident where the Escalade happened and he hit her on the floor, that was the first time. She said she got out of the car shocked. She didn't understand what happened, why she was so angry. She knew his capabilities, his access to firearms, and threats that he made, which highlighted the fear that she felt in this instance. Following that assault, she traveled to Connecticut to visit her mother, sharing that during this visit, she raised her shirt, allowing her mother to take photos of of the bruises on her lower back, buttocks, and right thigh. She said, I believe I told her this was the first time, and I didn't tell her about the freak-offs. She admitted to feeling unable to explain the situation to her mother, stating, I just couldn't justify it to anyone, especially my mom. Ventura also testified that when she returned home for that Christmas in 2011, after another altercation with him, she lied to her mother about the abuse. She had bruises from her incident, but told her mom it was the first time he had hit her, saying, quote, I couldn't hurt her like that. It was terrifying. It's not normal, constantly being bruised up by the person you love who says that they love you. Again, jurors were showed these photos as well. These bruises, including a large dark mark on her lower back, along with bruises on her shoulder and thigh from the altercation. Then they were shown additional bruises and injuries after another beating that she received at the hands of him after he discovered the romance with Kid Cudi. She described the physical violence that she suffered, saying, he kicked me in my back on the way out, so I had a big bruise on my back. She explained that she fell to the floor and left the scene, but the injuries didn't stop there. I had bruises in other places on my body. I remember that one because he kicked me with the bottom of his foot in my back. The prosecution was then presented a horrifying image to the jury, which was taken in December of 2011, showing Ventura's bruises on her lower back and legs. The photo, which was taken by Ventura's mother, was shown as evidence of the assault. After the incident, Ventura said that she went to her mother's house, but she lied about the assault, claiming it was the first time. And real quick, because look, guys, I see the trolls in here. And I will address them when we get through this. There are clearly some people that need to understand abuse. It becomes very frustrating to me that people have this wonderful gift of hindsight, saying that they know what they would do in this situation. And to me, when you are that person saying things like that, you have the privilege of clearly never having been in an abusive situation. I have been in an abusive situation. I grew up with a very abusive mother, an abusive stepfather. I have been thrown across the room. I have been physically manhandled and like picked up and thrown and hit. So I know what it's like. So people need to stop trying to trivialize and victim blame when you don't know. And I will get into the comments as a point to educate later on in this, because I feel like we need to do that. And that's not something we should have to do. We should be past in 2025 a point where we blame victims for the abuse that they endure. There is nothing that somebody could do, a woman that could do, that should take the type of beating that Sean Diddy Combs gave to her. Kicking in the back, hitting her, beating her, black eyes, knots on her head, gashes on her head. Nobody should have to endure that. And making an excuse for that, making excuses for that, or justifications for that, shows a lot about you and your character. All right? You could think that it's funny. You can think that you're being cute, but you're not. And the issue is Cassie's not the only person, which is why this is the foundation of the case, showing coercion, showing force, showing that this was a racketeering, that he was making people perform these acts under the guise of his business, having them pay for them. And that's what's going on. And this is the foundation. We're only a couple of days into this. We're on the second or third witness, Cassie being the star one. All right? So check your privilege. Check your privilege. Anyways, the prosecutor, hold on real quick. We talked about that. All right, so here's something that is worth mentioning, though. Here's something that's worth mentioning now. During the trial, a defense complaint regarding the lack of specificity, you guys know what I'm trying to say, in testimony about violence led to the prosecutor eliciting detailed accounts from Cassie Ventura of the violent events she endured at the hands of Sean Diddy Combs. The first event she described occurred early in the relationship. This is admin stuff. In 2007, she recalled being at a dinner with him and his friends when she noticed the flirting. We talked about that. So she had to explain more about that incident. After another incident, she had to, basically the defense said you needed to be more specific. That's worth mentioning. Okay, so now we've talked about what she's endured. Let's talk about what people's impression of that was, okay? So she testified about a violent altercation in 2015 and what she claimed that Diddy beat her while she was hosting a party in a Las Vegas room. She described being punched and kicked as she tried to escape, making her way to the bathroom in an attempt to hide. I was trying to run away and I made it into the bathroom. I was hiding underneath the toilet to get away from him. She mentioned that members of Combs' security team and management teams eventually intervened to stop the attack. She described the severe injuries she sustained, including black eyes, golf ball-sized knots on her forehead. One of his security guards became visibly emotional and began crying at the injuries that he put on her. After the incident, Ventura said she had to stay at Combs' house for nearly a week to recover from these injuries, while Combs' son was also present in the house during this time. But listen to how he responded with this, okay? This is really like it's all effed up, but just this shows you the callousness that this man has towards her. Because when Combs saw her injuries during a FaceTime call, and remember, Diddy's son is there, Diddy told her to apply more makeup so his son wouldn't notice the damage to her face. Apply more makeup, not I'm sorry I did this to you. Apply more makeup. I don't want my son to see what I did to you. I mean, that's what it translates to, right? That's what it translates to. Now, she then goes on to talking about her witnessing him physically abusing others, including friends and employees. So Cassie testified that she witnessed him physically abuse other people, including his employees or friends. One instance, she recalled him punching someone in the head. Another occasion, during an international trip, Ventura saw him drag his assistant, Mia, out of her bed and onto the deck outside her room after she resisted when he tried to take her phone. She also described a disturbing event in her LA apartment where she witnessed Combs hold one of her friends over a balcony on a 17th floor, by the way, early in the morning. She said, there was an incident where I was asleep in my room, and when I came out, Sean was holding her and threw her onto the patio furniture. I saw him bring her back over the railing of the balcony and then throw her onto patio furniture. Prosecutor Emily Johnson displayed a headshot of Ventura's friend, and Ventura testified that she is still friends with that woman. Now, further detailing that violence, the friend, by the way, was Brianna. She's a fashion designer, Brianna, who goes by Bongalin. Again, held over a 17th story balcony. Okay, 17 stories up. All right, crazy. So, anyways, the friend, Brianna Bongalin, later sued Combs for $10 million, claiming she was not only physically abused, but also molested by him. In the lawsuit, she detailed Combs' frequent abuse of Ventura during their relationship. Now, Cassie then testified about keeping a knife in the door handle during an unannounced visit from Combs. Cassie testified about the safety measures she began to take during a period of time when she was subjected to unannounced visits from him, which often led to her feeling fearful. She explained that she wedged a large knife into the door handle to protect herself, describing it as a way to kill two birds with one stone, locking the door while also having a weapon nearby. The prosecutor then presented a photo from 2018 showing the knife wedged in the door handle, a stark visual representation of the fear and anxiety that she was experiencing at the time, saying, quote, he was really angry. And she felt that these unannounced visits made her feel unsafe in her own home. She then testified about free cost. Again, this is another trigger warning part, guys. I mean, this is all trigger warning, but you know. So she testified that it was impossible to know how many free coughs she participated in during her time with him when they asked her. She said that she estimates that there were hundreds of them. When asked if she had been involved in any such events since ending her relationship with him in 2018, she said no. In another part of her testimony, she described an alleged R by Combs in 2018 after what she had believed would be a closure conversation. She said she recalled going out to dinner with him at a restaurant in Malibu where their conversation was nice and playful at the time. She was already in a relationship with her now husband, Alex Fine, who, by the way, was Combs' personal trainer at one point. After dinner, Ventura testified that Combs took her back to her apartment. She said, I went inside and then he followed her in and R'd her on the living room floor. She said, I remember crying and saying no. It was fast. His eyes were black. He wasn't himself. It was like somebody taking something from you. She went on to say that after that incident, they were intimate voluntarily one other time. Cassie then testified she didn't have the resources to leave after Combs beat her. And I think this is an important conversation, important part of the testimony. Cassie testified about the difficulty she faced in leaving him after an incident of violence that occurred following the party at an LA nightclub. She recalled how Combs told her she needed to sneak out of the house and go with his security to stay at a hotel. She described sneaking into the hotel covered up, hiding her injuries because she didn't want anyone to see her in that condition. Although Ventura wanted to stay at Combs's house rather than go to the hotel, he would not allow her to do so. She testified that after spending about a week at the hotel, she expressed a desire to leave but felt trapped. She didn't have the resources she needed to get out and move, to get out and have nobody stop her. Because remember, if she didn't answer her phone, he would send people after her. She explained that she felt unsafe, and she understood what his capabilities were, his access to firearms, the threats he has previously made, all which made her feel like she was unable to leave. She described how her mother became aware of the incident after reading a description of the event online that didn't include Ventura's name, but her mother called to ask if it was about her. Ventura, however, did not tell her mother the truth. She said, "I didn't tell my mom because I was ashamed, but I also felt like at that point I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't want to put my mother in danger of knowing anything of that magnitude." Earlier in her testimony, she shared the details of the violent altercation, including how he became enraged after the confrontation at the nightclub. She had drunkenly punched him in the face, prompting him to throw her to the floor of the car, stomp her face. Just as a quick reminder for you guys. After arriving at the house, she tried to escape, but security caught up with her and forced her back inside. So she tried to escape after that event, but they forced her back. She didn't recognize herself in the mirror. Now, let's talk about the lawsuit, because a lot of people want to know about the lawsuit that she filed against him. It was sealed. She filed. Now, and remember, for people who don't know, he approached her, or she approached him saying that she wanted to settle this privately. He declined, basically laughed in her face about it. So she took it to court, which, by the way, is how he's in the position that he's in now. And apparently they settled within 24 hours for $20 million. Okay. So she testified that she settled that for 20 mil. The lawsuit alleged years of R and abuse. And again, it was resolved within 24 hours. When she asked why she chose to testify at her trial, she explained, "I can't carry this anymore. I can't carry the shame and the guilt." In her testimony, she also discussed the book that she wrote in 2023, which, by the way, if you want to support her, I would encourage you to purchase her book. Although she did get 20 million richer, but still, her book should be read. Her story should be told. So audiobook, physical book, I'm just going to encourage you to do it. I'm going to pick up a copy, I believe, myself. Stating that she didn't believe Combs understood the pain that she endured. She said, "I didn't think he understood. I don't think after all those years of begging for sorries and for him to actually recognize the pain he put me through, I just wanted him to understand." And I get that. I get wanting the person who abused you to understand and them never taking accountability. I have been there. Ventura explained that she sent the book to Combs through a lawyer and offered him the chance to buy the rights of the book for $30 million. "I wanted to be compensated for the time, the pain, and the many years of having to fix my life." When asked how she arrived at that number, she said, "I really didn't do any research. I just picked a number that I felt would alert him." However, when she later reached out to Combs' employees to ask whether he had read the book, she was told that it hadn't been taken seriously. Despite her efforts, Ventura did not receive any compensation from Combs for her writings of the book. Again, had he done this, had he purchased the rights to the book, had she settled privately, he would not be sitting in this courtroom right now, going through what he's going through. Because at the end of the day, guys, at the end of the day, even if he beats this, which I don't think he will, he's ruined. He will never work in this industry again. He's done. He's forever shamed. He's like Bill Cosby. He might not be in jail if this happens, but he'll forever be tainted. So what is the aftermath of something like this? What does this look like? Well, she testified about a difficult moment in 2023 where she experienced horrible flashbacks while shooting a music video. Overwhelmed by the traumatic memories, she confided in her husband, telling him, "You can do this without me. You don't need me here anymore." Unable to cope with the pain, she revealed that she attempted to take her own life by walking into traffic. However, her husband intervened, preventing her from going any further. In the weeks following this incident, Ventura sought professional help, undergoing both rehab and trauma therapy to address the emotional scars she's been carrying for years. In addition to her struggles with trauma, she also testified about her dependency on narcotics during her relationship with Sean. She shared that she frequently took opiates, sometimes with Combs, and became heavily dependent on them, using them daily. And she did it, if you missed the earlier recap from the midday, it was basically so she could disassociate herself from everything that was going on. If she didn't take the drugs, she would feel ill. She also sought professional help for her opiate use 5 or 6 times throughout the course of her relationship with Sean. She testified that she last used narcotics in 2022 and no longer uses them. She went to rehab and sought professional help. This was the second half, guys. Now, tomorrow, the judge dismissed the jury earlier earlier in the day, like before 5 o'clock, because that was a good stopping point because defense takes over tomorrow. The judge indicated that both the prosecution and defense must resolve certain issues concerning cross-examination before they proceed. My guess is they're working on that. And she expects the cross-examination to continue into Friday. So it starts tomorrow, which is Thursday, and it'll go into Friday. And then after that, she might be done testifying. People are asking the name of Cassie's book. So let me see if I can find that for you. And then we're gonna address a couple things that I promised we'd come back to address. It is called, is it everything on paper? The book is part of a larger narrative. Is it out? I'll have to try. It might not be. I don't know if it's out yet. Does anybody know? I don't know. There's something called The Love of Sean Combs, but I'm not sure that that's it. That's not it. So I don't know. I'll try to find out what the deal is with the book, and I'll let you guys know on the next one once we find out. So I want to go back and look at some of these comments real quick. Let me scroll back. Real quick for YouTube, we had a couple super chats, super stickers. Thank you guys so much. First, you, Snoopy, I appreciate you. And Grandma Faith, thank you guys as well. I appreciate you very, very much on that. I want to go back and talk because I get really frustrated with this when we talk about violence. And DV can be violence towards women, could be towards men. In this case, we're talking about violence of men towards women, which is typically the bulk of what we see. Any type of abuse, whether it's physical, there you go. Thank you, Alexa. Trash night, guys. But anyways, we all have a gift to sit here, right? We're not in the situation that Cassie or other people who have been in the situation before have been in. I have been in that situation with a family member, and it took me into my 30s. It took my wife becoming pregnant with my daughter for me to finally make a move and get away with it, to have enough self-worth to say, I don't want to continue this process with my daughter. Okay. That is what took me to finally stop what I went through for my entire childhood into adulthood. It's not as easy to just leave as you say that. It's not as easy to just leave if you're in that situation. And when you're looking at somebody specifically like Sean Combs with unlimited wealth, unlimited resources, the ability to pay people off and make people disappear, then it becomes even harder. You go to the police, they get paid off. That's what happens. The good thing about an FBI case, a feds case, is that you can't pay off the feds. It's a well-known thing. Mobsters have tried. Many people wealthier than Diddy have tried. Epstein has tried. R. Kelly has tried. You can't pay them off. They're there for one reason only, and that is to get a conviction, and that's it. But when you're dealing with local PD, in fact, there's one officer who's now in Hawaii who had accusations. I can't remember the specifics right now off the top of my head, but he got paid off and he left. So these things get swept under the rug all the time. And again, if you are privileged enough, I'm going to tell you I'm just going to say this. If you are one of the people saying, just leave, she could have done this, she could have done that, just maybe don't say anything because you clearly don't know what you're talking about. You clearly don't know what it's like to be in a situation like that, and clearly don't know what it's like to have somebody control your life. He would literally send people after her. If you ask people, not celebrities, normal, everyday people who have been in that situation, they isolate you from people. They isolate you from friends. They isolate you from family. They get you in a position where you become solely and fully dependent on them. They break you down to the point that you feel like you have no self-worth. And so again, if you feel like you want to make these comments, you are showing your privilege, check it at the door, and maybe don't. And that is my advice to you. That is my advice to you. What I hope happens with this, what I hope comes from this with Cassie specifically, is there are countless women who have been abused and it is never taken seriously. They never speak up. People who have been essayed, hit, they never do. I hope that seeing this, Cassie's bravery, going up against somebody like Sean Diddy Combs, if one person leaves their situation or one person speaks up because she chose to get on that stand, then that's a win. That's a win. And I think that she's going to have a hell of an impact on that. She is a strong, brave, incredible woman who is doing something that she doesn't have to do. She got paid out. She doesn't have to continue this, but she is, because he needs to be held accountable. Now, again, I said this at the beginning and I'll say this now. He's not on trial for domestic violence. He's on trial for racketeering, trafficking, and, transportation of prostitution, whatever the specific verbiage is of it. What they've proven is starting to show coercion. We've had escorts talk, so you're starting to see some of those things come into play. But remember, this is an 8-week trial, and we are truthfully, 3 days in. 3 days in. There is a lot more to come, and prosecution is just barely getting everything started. Anyways, guys, we're gonna be doing this tomorrow. I'll probably do some updates, some snippets later tonight, in case you missed it. If you came in on TikTok or Instagram, TikTok don't go anywhere. I'm gonna come talk to you guys when I sign off this. But for Instagram and for TikTok, if you came in late and you want to see this is on YouTube. It's recorded. You can go back and watch the whole thing. We really just went through the whole gauntlet of the notes and stuff that happened in the second half. There are 2 halves, the midday recap and this one. I did not expect this to take an hour. There's a lot of information that came. That being said, I will see you guys tomorrow right here on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Don't go anywhere. Thank you all for hanging out. Drop your thoughts in the comments, of course, and we will see you guys tomorrow.